Now, the director and writer Nora Ephron has taken her passion for food and paired it with her passion for writing and directing. Her new dish is called Julie and Julia. It stars Meryl Streep and Amy Adams and others. And speaking of Meryl Streep as Julia Child, the New York Times says in its review, by now this actress has exhausted every superlative that exists, and to suggest that she has outdone herself is only to say that she's done it again. Her performance goes beyond physical imitation, though she has the rounded shoulders and the fluting voice down perfectly. And the Washington Post notes, Julie and Julia might have started out as a paean to the joys of cooking, but it turns out to be an even more profound appreciation of the mutual comprehension and erotic charge that defines a great marriage. And finally, the Wall Street Journal. Nora Ephron's Julie and Julia gives us Meryl Streep in a grand comic performance, a fearless actress playing the fearless Julia Child in post-World War II Paris, where she is in the process of transforming herself from an embassy wife into a world-famous apostle of French cuisine. Here is the trailer for Julie and Julia.
I'm Julia Child. Bon appetit.
Before she changed the world, Julia Child was just an American living in France.
Shouldn't I find something to do?
What is it that you really like to do?
Eat.
And we are so good at it. Look at you. Now,
They're
how
growing
good
in
you are.
front of you.
But what does Julia Child have to do with me, lowly cubicle worker Julie Powell?
So how's your job, Julie?
Are you the person to speak to about my insurance form?
You can speak to me.
Do you have any power?
No.
Heartbreak. So sad. Painful. Not in a bad way.
I don't know. Do you think I'm lost? Is this lost? If you met me, would you think that woman is lost?
I would think that woman is strangely repetitive.
Did you hear what happened to this one?
Showtime bought my blog for a mini-series.
I could write a blog. I have thoughts.
Write a blog about cooking.
I'm not a real cook like Julia Child.
Julia Child wasn't always Julia Child.
Why don't I go to cooking school? Bonjour!
The Julie/Julia Project. I cook my way through Julia Child's cookbook. 365 days, 524 recipes. I am risking my well-being for a deranged assignment.
Is it crazy?
Yes.
You should have seen the way those men looked at me. But then they discovered I was fearless.
Oh, Julia, you make it sound so simple.
Your book is going to change the world.
What if I don't make my deadline? I'll wasted a whole year of my life. I used to be thin and now I'm fat.
Just your face.
It's supposed to be a big adventure, but it just turns out to be a lot of meltdowns.
Yuck! There's all of this stuff on the floor.
Oh, never apologize.
From writer-director Nora Ephron.
This is good.
That is good, isn't it?
Meryl Streep, Amy Adams.
I was drowning and she pulled me out of the ocean.
Don't get carried away.
What's for dinner?
What's for dinner?
Oh, my.
Oh, God.
You have no real talent for cooking.
And I am pleased to be joined by two friends, Nora Ephron, the writer and director, and Meryl Streep, the great actress. Julie and Julia would have been as good or better or half good if it was just the story of Julia Child.
Well, I don't know. She had a pretty great life.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Like, why Julia? Why not Julia?
I immediately loved the idea of playing the two lives off against one another. One of the things I immediately thought about was The Hours, which is a movie I loved that Meryl was in, and which is really about one book and how you know
One book by Philip Roth, wasn't it?
No, that was by Virginia Woolf.
Oh, Virginia Woolf.
And how her book, Mrs. Dalloway, reached years and years into the future,
To other people's lives.
And so I started out really thinking this was a movie about a book, and then of course I realized it was a movie about 18 other things, and depending whom I'm talking to, I change the thing. If you were a food writer, I would tell you it was about food. And last night I was at the Smithsonian Museum, where they dedicated a whole wall of Julia's pots, and I informed everyone there that it was a movie about America.
By the way, the Smithsonian has a lot of her stuff, doesn't it? Didn't she
It has her
send
kitchen.
her kitchen down
It
there
has
as
her
well as her
kitchen.
little memento from...
But it had her kitchen minus one wall of pots, and yesterday they arrived there, so that's why I was there.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
great.
Now, were you a devotee of Julia Child?
I was in high school, of course. Not even.
People.
I was in the 8th grade.
But the
I
book has
believe,
been
when
in
her show
100,000 printings,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't
My
matter
mother-
what generation you are from.
No, exactly. My mother was not a devotee,
Yeah,
and it was hurry up and eat it.
What did you cook?
We had a lot of steaks, chops, and tuna fish and noodle casserole
But
and
you,
TV
do
dinners.
you cook?
Me?
You.
Yes, I cook.
Because she's obsessed by it, aren't you?
I
She's
love
good.
food.
But you don't-
I love food, and I like cooking a lot. I do. I do. I
So
mean,
this was even more so a labor of love for you than
well, and I
beyond everything
also
else.
love there being good food on a movie set. And we not only had good food in the sort of craft service place, but then we had all this Julia Child food that there was always a huge amount left over, and we got to eat it. So.
Why was she magical?
Oh gosh, how do you define charm and that thing that certain people have where they exude joie de vivre? That's what she had. She seemed to be happy to be alive every day that she was. She lived to be 92. And even
And she
at the
found the
end,
love of her life.
She found the love
after
of her
rejecting others.
Yeah.
Looking for the right.
Yes, I don't know how much rejecting. She did turn down the guy who was going to be owned the LA Times,
Yeah,
one
right.
of those
Chandler.
Chandlers. Yeah.
Turned him down.
Turned him down.
She wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, and I think, you know, she was 6'2", her sister was 6'4". I think they were used to being sort of outsized, sized out of the competition for men.
Tall women have a hard time.
Well, especially then, I think. People were littler.
She was in the OSS, which made her always, when you heard Julia Child, when you found that little nugget out, she somehow became even more interesting.
Yes, but I certainly don't think she was a spy in any real way. I think she worked with classified material and filed it beautifully. But I don't think, I could be wrong, but she was a truth teller, and she always said she was a clerk, and I think she was telling the truth. There weren't a lot of women in high positions in the OSS.
But she had managerial skills, they said back then.
Yes, and she was fantastically organized.
When you started to do this, you had one phone call to make, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
that's true. I did.
And if she'd said no, would you have still made it?
I don't think the studio would have made it. I would happily have made it with someone, some lesser human being, you know. But you know, Meryl had
But there are certain movies in which you can't.
us a gigantic favor by having 2 smash hit movies. So.
The studio wanted her badly.
Well, everyone does.
Yeah.
So.
So the story you want us to understand and appreciate is these 2 very interesting people who are bound by one single thing: Julia Child's life and Julia Child's wannabe.
One of the themes, and there's so many overlapping themes. I mean, this is really about love. It's really about marriage. It's really about a kind of marriage that actually exists. Thank God it does, or people would have accused me of making this up. But there are guys who really do take enormous pleasure in their wives' growth and change and all of those things. So, so that was one of the things I loved that it was about. I loved realizing about halfway through that I was writing a movie about marriage, and how rare it is that you get to do this kind of marriage, because movies require plot, but a marriage, a good marriage, requires the absence of plot. The last thing you want is for something to happen. You know, you do not want the thing that makes people walk out the door, or you know, that's the normal movie about a marriage always has somebody walking out the door at the end of the second act of the movie. Well, they didn't really have that kind of marriage. These people were really together, and that was fun.